most real estate agents look at the top line. They look at how much they make gross. They'll say, okay, I made 200,000 last year, but they're really not factoring in how many hours they're putting in on a daily basis. They're really not factoring in from that 200, 50% in California or 30, 40% is in taxes, So they're not factoring in all the expenses that come along. So sometimes, quite frankly, and I see this a lot of times with coworkers, they seem really successful, but in the background, they don't have anything left over. So what is the time study? How did you figure out that you made $18 an hour? And what would you recommend to somebody that maybe if they do the time study and they're spending time on tasks that are worth less than what they want to make, what do you recommend that they do in those situations? Hi, everybody. This is Joseluiz Morales. Welcome back to the Morales Group podcast. This is episode number 49. Today, we've got a very special guest. His name is Lars Hedenborg. He's the founder of Real Estate B School. Real Estate B School provides coaching to top producing agents and helps them build sustainable systems. He's the founder of the Business Freedom Podcast. He's got a book called Scale or Die, which if you haven't read it, it's fantastic. Began his real estate career in 2007, was working 70 hours plus, and now he basically got it down to working 1 day a week and basically selling hundreds of homes. So welcome to the show, Lars. How are you?
I'm doing awesome. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to share probably mostly my failures, but hopefully some wisdom as well.
Awesome, man. Cool. So I'm excited to have you. I recently read your book, The Scale or Die. I loved how you broke it down into very simple things that you have to do, focusing on attract, convert, deliver, and then scale. So I love that. And I just wanted to have you on the show just so that you can kind of shed some light and kind of help the viewers, real estate agents, kind of see like the bigger picture as it relates to real estate. So can you just walk us through your journey, kind of tell us how you got started in the business? What did your first couple years look like? And then how the transition, how you ended up transitioning into a business owner versus just like a high producing real estate agent?
Yeah, for sure. When I look back and think about the early days in real estate, it really blows my mind that the things that I was willing to do and put up with to build a business. And I think, we get our licenses and we, for whatever reason, we're attracted to real estate. For me, I was an investor. I was working with a local agent. And I think I bought like 9 or 10 properties with him here locally. And he just mentioned like, you should really consider getting your license. It was like looking at homes, buying homes. And like, he seemed to have this great lifestyle. So I ended up getting my license and going to work for him. Come to find out that, he had two locations, probably 20 agents or so, but he was selling 7 days a week. So he had all this overhead, management responsibility, and just having to sell a lot of real estate himself. And he was just super smart guy, like really good guy. I knew I didn't want that though. And so I was first 10 months in the business, I sold 27 homes. I had just been married in 2006. I got into real estate in 2007 for first 10 months. And then 2008 was my first full year, sold 44 homes. And it was instantly 7 days a week. So I was instantly out of bounds in terms of, commitments I had made to my bride, Julie, and, Anders, my son, was like, he was this big. He was a big baby, but he didn't know what was going on. So I hadn't made any like real commitments that I could break with him yet. I just had a vision though. Like I didn't want my business life to get in the way of the things that matter, ultimately more than selling homes, and in real estate, man, especially in the markets we're in now, it feels like you got to be 24/7, and so for me, I just chose to go down a path of business ownership, where, how could I build a business that helped buyers and sellers better than other agents in my market? And I did it with, systems and people. I'm like, surely there's somebody that can show homes like evenings and weekends that would actually want to do it with a smile. Like I never showed up to a showing on a Sunday afternoon with a smile. Like I did not want to be there. There's no part of me that wanted to be there. But when I offered the agents on my team the opportunity to show homes evenings and weekends, they were happy to take 20, 25 bucks an hour, plus a little bonus when they wrote a contract for one of my clients. So, the team scaled by necessity. I hired an administrator. 80% of what I was doing, it felt like, was administrative in nature. It doesn't mean it wasn't important. Like if I took a listing, getting that listing in the MLS and the marketing collateral and the images, and like that's critically important. It's not $250 an hour. Like that's the number that I wanted to get to 500,000 net as quickly as possible, working 2,000 hours a year. The first year, 2007, I made $18 an hour. I actually calculated pretty close to the hours I worked in those first 10 months. And I netted $36,000 on 180 from my broker. 250, I think I made total or whatever. So yeah, so that's kind of how I got into it. The driver, was really wanting to be a good dad and a good husband. Like that was the ultimate. I still have a picture. This is an old picture, but it always reminds me. You can see my son there. He's 13 now, and my daughter's 10. So that's probably like 6 or 7 years old. I keep that picture because it constantly reminds me, like, stay in bounds. Like there's an endless amount of work we could do, and sometimes we're attracted to the work because we could get a result, and it's like sometimes easier than getting a result from my 10-year-old. Like it's hard to get her to do anything right now. So, to focus more on business and get the outcome you want is sometimes, more fun and more satisfying. And it ultimately leads to regret and being, off base in the key areas of life. So that's kind of a bit of an overview. Went from 60 to 120, 180, 250, 310, 400 plus sales in 2000. 12, 13, 14, those years. In those years is when I sort of really turned into a business owner, and I handed over all the day-to-day responsibility for that business. I've recently gifted my real estate team, my portion, to charity, which is pretty cool. And so I just have other things that I'm pursuing that are, more meaningful to me. And I really want to have like massive amounts of margin in my day to be a good dad in some critical years with my kids where, I got to make sure they're at least in the range of like decent human beings before like I kick them out of the house when they're 18. So that's really the focus right now.
And I think for me, Lars, one of the reasons I wanted to have you on the show as well, too, is I remember when I got started in the business, sometimes you get exposed to what's around you and you almost feel like that's normal. Meaning like if you go into an office where they're working 7 days a week, they're working 10, 12-hour days, they're wearing multiple hats, you just think that that's normal and that's the way it should be. One of the things that helped me very early on in my career is I got exposed to agents that were selling hundreds of homes on a yearly basis. And that helped me. And now one of the transitions that I'm making is I'm looking to build more that business owner type of business. And obviously I'm further along than most, but yet having that exposure to somebody like you that's already done it as well too I think is important. So one of the things that stuck out in what you said to me was the fact that you did a time study challenge. So most real estate agents look at the top line. They look at how much they make gross. They'll say, okay, I made 200,000 last year, but they're really not factoring in how many hours they're putting in on a daily basis. They're really not factoring in from that 200, 50% in California or 30, 40% is in taxes, So they're not factoring in all the expenses that come along. So sometimes, quite frankly, and I see this a lot of times with coworkers, they seem really successful, but in the background, they don't have anything left over. So what is the time study? How did you figure out that you made $18 an hour? Mm-hmm. And what would you recommend to somebody that maybe if they do the time study and they're spending time on tasks that are worth less than what they want to make, what do you recommend that they do in those situations?
Yeah, there are a couple early influences that really changed my thinking on business. The one was E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber.
Great book.
Yeah, and it doesn't tell you how to do it, but it will shift your mindset around it. And then the second was No BS Time Management for Entrepreneurs by Dan Kennedy. And there's a chapter in that book that it literally takes you through a calculation, and we've since coined the term Business Freedom Index. There's 6 stages of growth to a real estate agent, like solo agent all the way up to owner status. And the Business Freedom Index is a very simple calculation. Everybody must do this calculation, especially as we're live here this time of year when you're figuring out how much money you netted. I like to look at AGI, adjusted gross income from your tax return. And so take that number. It's literally like, I forget which line it is in your 1040. Take that number, because people will say, yeah, but I add all these things in. And I'm like, who cares? Like that is the number that you're working for. I don't care if you throw your car in there or vacations. Like, so AGI divided by the hours you work. And that's where it gets a little sideways. You know, you have to be really honest about, like, I go back in my calendar, I still do this calculation. I go back in my calendar and I don't work weekends. I generally have Fridays, more of a flex day. And I go back and I just count the hours. And so there's 2 ways to do it, and you have to do both. You have to do the actual. So it doesn't matter where you are right now. Generally, stage 1 and stage 2, that's under 500,000 GCI top line. Those are generally 0 to 25 and 25 to 50. So dollars per hour. $50 per hour is decent pay. But when you can make 500 an hour, if you kind of follow the principles of leverage, then it doesn't look so great. I did that calculation as I came out of that first part year in real estate. So 10 months, I had 36,000 AGI, and I divided it by, I think in 10 months, I worked over 2,000 hours. It was a lot. I worked a lot, probably 2,500. The number worked out to $18 an hour. And so what I decided was that I was going to make 500,000 working 2,000 hours. So a 40-hour work week. So my reality was $18 an hour, but my aspiration was $250 an hour. I'm like, I left a cozy corporate job. I did acquisitions and strategy for an aerospace company. I probably have seen like 30 countries, in that career, and flying first class on expense, like the best career ever. I loved it, but it didn't give me the financial freedom I was looking for. And so I left that. I'm like, if I'm going to leave that, I better make, CEO money. And the CEO was making about that at the time. And I want to work 40-hour work weeks. I don't want to travel. I don't want to do any of that. So that's $250 an hour. And I said, when I look at all the jobs that I do, let's say there's more than a dozen, but if you break down the dozen jobs of a real estate agent, the reality is 10 of the 12 are doing at least less than $50 an hour, but most of them are less than $25 an hour. And I'm in a top 20 metro market. It might be a little bit higher in your market, a little bit less. The bottom line is that if you want to make $25 an hour, then you absolutely should do all the $25 an hour activity. The best example, I wanted to make 250. I actually wrote it on sticky notes, and I pasted it everywhere. And it was a constant reminder, is what you're doing now the highest and best use of your time? That you should write down, pull the car over, and ask yourself that question 10 times a day. Is what I'm doing now the best and highest use for my time? And if it's not, like if you're running errands during the day and you're, in MLS putting a listing in, and then you're running a lockbox out and you're picking up a check, and like, that's what the industry thinks the job of a real estate agent is. That's ridiculous, because you can't make any money going to pick up a check or picking up dry cleaning, or like, and you look at an average agent, even top producing agents, they're tapped on their hours because it's all administrative. And so just that commitment to stop doing the things. And for me, I drew the line at $50 an hour. And that line allowed me to get rid of everything except sellers. And it took me a couple years to do that. But I just got to work 90 days at a time to delegate so I could elevate. So delegate the things off my plate that were lower dollar productive activities so I could elevate into, just every quarter. And let's say it was about 6 years, my journey to business owner. So that's 6 times 4, so 24 quarters. I was able to 1 quarter at a time just make commitments around what I was going to stop doing. And I feel like, that time study, we have a process. It's called the Business Freedom Planner, but we have a process with leading up to setting this up for the quarter is a 2-week time study. So, and I'm not going to lie, it's painful. So that there's not a whole lot of fun that goes into it, because you're documenting your activities in 15-minute increments from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to bed for 14 days straight, two working weeks.
Yeah.
And it's going to highlight all the social media that you're doing, all media in general, whether it be, social media, news, or Netflix or whatever, or sports. And you're going to write down, like, I was in my email, or I was, entering an MLS listing, and then you just code all these activities, and you're just honest with yourself. What's business administrative and what's personal administrative? And you have to get to work to get those off your plate if you're not making the money you want, or you're not moving your financial picture forward. And so that's like the whole secret. There is literally, I say literally, figuratively, there's not a whole lot. Like, that's the essence of what I've done and what I teach. It's like, if I could open up, you're complaining about not making money and working too many hours. All right, let me follow you around for 2 weeks. I promise if I follow you around for 2 weeks, I will identify exactly why you're not succeeding. It's because you're just working on stuff that doesn't need you to work on it.
Well, I think they say, Lars, that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. And I think that at the beginning of the year, especially now, real estate agents make a business plan as to what they want to do, how they want to grow their business. But then sometimes they don't make the commitment, or they don't realize what they're doing. Hence, they don't make the commitments to fix it. Like, for example, I know agents that have been stuck around 20 to 30 deals a year. And I've been telling them, like, hey, look, it might be time to hire your first assistant already. You're over here. You've got a listing and you're getting 20 calls in this hot market from real estate agents. You're talking to them each for 3-5 minutes at a time. Not only that, but it's distracting you from other things. And sometimes that fear or just not actually taking action to do it basically keeps them at the same level. It keeps them stuck. So for me, I learned the same principle, but I learned it in economics, in an economics class. And they talked about something called opportunity cost. And basically, opportunity cost means whatever your time is worth, if you're spending time on things that are worth less than that, then essentially you should be able to delegate them unless you enjoy doing those things. So very early on, I delegated a lot of things. And now I'm at a different stage where I meet people like you, and I'm like, man, there's still a lot more things that I should probably be delegating essentially. So take us through the journey. So let's say that somebody is looking to hire their first assistant. Like, at what stage should somebody hire their first assistant? Should they hire a buyer's agent first? What should that process look like for somebody?
Yeah, there's so much in there that I want to comment on. And I'll lead into the question with a comment around, like, yeah, there's 85% of real estate agents don't have administrative support. I don't know where I heard that figure. Like, I think it's 87.2% of statistics are made up anyway. So but I've heard 85%. I think so. It's probably 1 out of 10 agents have administrative support. But we know that 80% of what a real estate agent does is administrative. So, and I think it's a mindset game, so you hit the point in your business where you have to focus on the things that are gonna make money. Yep. And so for me, it's like, you have to lead generate and get in front of buyers and sellers, and just get good at that. Your client care is going to stink. You're maybe you don't have back end systems that are robust, but you've got to get to the point where you're 2 to 3 homes per month. At 2 to 3 homes per month, well, really, as you scale, 10% of your top line GCI must go to administrative support. So if you're doing 200,000 GCI, let's say it's $10,000 commission check, 20 deals. 20,000 of your 200 must go to an administrator. That 20,000 is going to allow you to do probably 100,000 more, if not more. And so that's not a full-time person at first, right? If a good administrator is 40 grand in your market, this is someone who has to probably maybe take their kids to school in the morning and they need to pick them up at 2:30.
Mhm.
And they're super smart and they could use $20,000 extra per year. And they have a real estate license. That was my first hire. Had a real estate license. She had to be flexible with her time for her kids. And she worked 7 days a week, but it was probably only about 25 hours.
Yeah.
So there are lots of people in your market that are out there that are waiting for an opportunity. And you just have to realize that you only need to afford 3 months. So of the 20,000, you only have to have 5,000 saved. In 3 months, this person will allow you to reallocate that time, that opportunity cost, the time you were spending to, and granted, part of it is training this administrator, but you're just reallocating the time. So if that's 20 hours a week, you can give some back to your family, or you can put more time into the dollar producing activities in the business. And there's only a few things that generate real money as a real estate agent. And so, yeah, I think it's just being honest with where you're spending your time. I think everything starts from that. And we have an exercise. It's delegate to elevate, but it's based on passion and pay. So there are certain things that pay really well in real estate and certain things that don't pay really well, and they're all important. And so you have to decide what things you're passionate about and what things pay really well. And there are times where you absolutely have to do the things that pay really well that you're not passionate about. You know, I was not passionate about lead generating in the least bit. I'd never had a sales job before. I'm introverted. Picking up the phone, to me, the phone is like really heavy. I know it's heavy for everyone. For me, it's like super heavy. But I did it. I did it for religiously for 12 to 15 hours. I never missed a time block. Unfortunately, I had like Tuesdays and Thursdays, 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. Those were when some coach early on in my career said it's the best time. I wish I probably would have done it in the morning back then. But then I would do 12 to 15 hours total. And if you're not doing new business development for 12 to 15 hours a week, laser focused, you're missing the game of sales. There's no good salesperson that isn't dedicating time to making new contacts every day. So, and if you do that for 90 days or 6 months or 9 months or 12 months, you'll get busy enough to hire a full-time administrator. Yeah. You know, you just have to incrementally shed the things that that aren't making you the kind of money that you want to make. And it's just a mindset. And one more thing, the E-Myth question that impacted me most powerfully is, how would you have to think about your business differently if you were to replicate it 10,000 times? Yeah. So even if you don't have a second location, how would you think about your business differently if you had to replicate it 10,000 times? So you'd have to automate leads coming in. You'd have to figure out your database in a way where it could operate without you. You'd have to, have someone else show homes because you couldn't be in 10,000 markets at once. You'd have to, build probably a virtual buyer consultation, a virtual seller consultation. You'd have to get creative with how you deliver your services. You'd have to build marketing with collateral, a buyer presentation, a listing presentation, so other people could give it on your behalf. And so all those things have to happen as you're a solo agent. So you're having the vision of being a business owner, even if you don't go to 3 million plus, but still having that vision allows you to spend some time every week working on the business. And those time blocks don't turn into cash immediately, but they're the highest and best use of any entrepreneur's time, is building the systems out and building the marketing collateral and the sales process. And I mean, that stuff is how a business is built. And we never get taught that. It's just not something that we talk about in our industry. So, so I guess that kind of answered your question.
Here's the thing. There are agents that work 60 hours a week and sell 3 homes a year. There are agents that work 60 hours a week and sell 100 homes. So essentially, the way that I look at it is sometimes you're working the same amount as somebody else, but how is somebody else able to get such different results? And the reality is that they probably delegate a lot more things than that person. They're not running around installing a lockbox. They're not running around inputting a listing on the MLS. They're not doing all these extra things that can be delegated. And I think for a lot of people, they're scared. They're scared when they look at, I'm going to have to pay somebody $20,000 to $40,000 a year, they think about like how am I going to come up with this money? But the key is, you said you only have to have enough for 3 months. You know, at 3 months, if it doesn't work out, it essentially you guys can cut ties or separate. But the reality is they're looking at a big dollar amount, like $20,000, $40,000 versus X amount of dollars. And as it relates to the systems, is just being connected to people that have already been through that journey that can actually help guide you to be able to take it to the next level. I'm going to share one tip, Lars. When I got my first assistant, my broker at that time actually told me about a program that the county of Ventura has, where they pay half of the salary of your employee as long as you hire somebody that is unemployed at that time. They only have to be unemployed for 1 day. So essentially, if you're hiring somebody that is $20 an hour, they will pay the $10 an hour up to a certain limit, like $10,000 to $15,000 an hour. And I've told several agents about this program in my market. I told them, hey, look, you're ready for this. Like, you're only making a commitment of about $10 an hour. Like it's a no-brainer, you know, like hire somebody that's worth 20. They'll reimburse you $10 an hour. And the point that I'm trying to make here is that there may be a program in other markets as well too. And if you're at that stage where you're looking to maybe hire your first person, reach out to me, reach out to somebody like Lars, and see if there's a program like that in your market where you can take that jump. Because the reality is that once you make that jump, you don't ever envision your life going back to wearing all those hats. You don't ever want to go back to carrying 10, 20 different hats versus being able to delegate a lot of that stuff. And I think that's important. So I wanted to break this down because this was key for me. In your book, you talk about attract, convert, deliver, and then scale. Take us through that process and just how simple it is. Because I mean, if you really just break it down into those 4 things, you've really got the entire real estate business just in those 4 things. So can you break that down for us, and can you kind of guide us as to how you came about that and how that works?
Yeah. So if you think about, like, in real estate specifically, it's this not so virtuous cycle. It's a vicious cycle of you somehow attract a potential client, probably through a referral. You convert them, right, through some kind of like sign this buyer loyalty agreement or sign a listing agreement, and then you personally deliver the service. Mm-hmm. So you're out 20 hours a week showing homes to a buyer. You're losing multiple offers, you know, whatever the delivery part looks like, and then you didn't have time to attract, you know, and you have no systems in place. So you're constantly going from attract, convert, deliver, and you've never put systems in place. So you never get a shot at scaling anything because you're constantly in this vicious cycle of, you know, where's the next deal? And then, you know, then you get the deal and then you service it. And most of the servicing activities are $25 or less per hour in my market, a major metro market. And so if you're spending a lot of your time in servicing clients, you're just not ever going to get to the point where you can elevate out of it. So attract is different than paying Zillow or Google money. So I got to make that clear. Attract, I mean, we teach 8 lead gen levers in Real Estate B School, and none of them are to give money to Zillow. Not because Zillow's bad, not because it doesn't work, not any of that. I mean, Zillow works if you work it. It's just there are more sustainable ways to build a business. And those lead gen sources work to help you scale a business. Most of them don't scale as you add team members. So that's the only caveat with those. So attract is, you know, database marketing, listing marketing, and buyer marketing, and having systems in place to have leads coming consistently. Convert. So once you generate a potential buyer or seller, you've got to convert them, and only a small percentage convert on the first conversation. So first you have to have lead management, lead follow-up procedures in place. You have to have all your scripts and dialogues and all of your sales processes. So anyone can talk to a buyer, seller, prospect. So anyone can present a buyer consultation or a listing consultation. Then we go to deliver. Deliver is, you know, client servicing. You know, how can you deliver the promise you made in sales to your clients at a level that is on par with like the best service providers you've ever been to, the best restaurant you've ever been to, whatever you can think of. I have a dentist here locally that you can tell they play at a different level in terms of their care, their scripts. When I first went, they gave me a tour of it is on point. And then the punchline, one of our lead gen levers became social proof as a lead gen lever because of my experience with this dentist. At the end of my awesome experience being a new client, they asked me like, hey, have you given us a 5-star review yet? And so thinking about your clients, your client delivery or your deliver as a way to generate new business, contract to close, of course, in real estate, and then critical technology tools. And then if you begin to look at attract, convert, deliver as systems, and you're out of the systems, you're working on those systems, even if you're in it for a portion of the day, 80% of your time is in it, 20% has to be out. You'll eventually get to the point where I've got a showing agent, I've got an administrator, I have some leverage, and I've cleared some time off of my plate. So now I can actually scale this business. Mm-hmm. And scaling is simply, creating a plan, knowing your numbers, and then growing your team. And even if your vision is to have, let's say the ultimate vision, because this a lot of folks can envision this. Let's say the thought of not selling homes is too much for you to grasp at this point. How would it look if you were, $1 million business where all you worked was your SOI listings? Mm-hmm. You had a couple, 3 buyer agents and 1 administrator, and you're taking home $500,000 working 40 to 45 hours a week, no evenings, no weekends. And so that's a pretty cool business, but you have to understand that attract, convert, deliver has to operate on a systems level. And then you can focus on the business owner aspects of it, which is just, a 3-year vision, 1-year plan, 90 days. And then we use the business driven planner, knowing your numbers, simple tracking tools to make sure that your KPIs, your key performance indicators, and your financial performance, they're where they need to be. And then growing your team is a little bit of attracting talent and interviewing, hiring, onboarding administrators and agents, but then also the culture and cadence of your business. So that's how they all fit together. And really, attract, convert, deliver is any business owner that's in the rat race and just constantly looping on those, and they're never scaling, they're never getting any freedom of time. It's likely that they're in that vicious cycle of just looking for the next client, because it's this roller coaster. Like, you get a client, you make some money, and then, oh crap, I have no more clients. And you get a client. So it's just like a roller coaster, where our goal is to smooth it out, not to go for crazy growth just for growth's sake, but to smooth it out where maybe there's a little bit of, but it's generally trending upwards.
Not only that, but that emotional roller coaster for some people. I mean, it causes stress. It causes problems in their marriage. It causes problems in their family. It causes uncertainty as well too. I look at the attract, convert, deliver almost like the foundation of the business, of any business. If you get really good at the attract, convert, deliver part, essentially you got the foundation. Then after you have the foundation, then you can scale. But sometimes agents are trying to scale, but they don't have the foundation set. So therefore they're scaling like chaos, or they're scaling something that is not scalable or shouldn't be scalable as well too.
And I have to take a moment to introduce like my best friend. This guy has been around with probably, my team bought me this probably back in like 2010. So he's still on my desk, a constant reminder. So this conversation around, scaling a business, you can't have this conversation without the conversation about chasing squirrels. So in our industry, another reason we haven't even talked about it, another reason why agents fail to scale is that they don't realize that you don't need to do 10 different things to sell 100 homes. Mm-hmm. You literally need 2 lead gen levers to sell 100 homes, maybe 3, as you've got to go set up the database, right? That's got to be 1, and 1 additional lead gen lever. That's going to get you to 2, 3, 4 homes per month with 2. You add your 3rd, you get to 5, 6, and 4 gets you to 125, 150, 200. But it's going deep. Like whatever it is that you're going to pick, it's going deep. There are businesses around the country built on referrals only. There are businesses built on expired, mailers or open houses, door knocking. Problem is, you do a little bit of one day, you do a little bit one day, and then none of it ever takes hold, and you're spread too thin, and you're not scaling. So the squirrel is real. That's why we need a planning process. You need to be clear about what you're going to focus on, this year. That's going to lead you closer to your 3-year vision, but also chunk it down into a quarter. It's funny. We have our lowest level is under 500K GCI, and there's a guy. If he's watching this, he'll know who he is. Every week he comes on when I do the training in there. He's like, "Hey, have you heard of whatever, abcnet.com, real estate, whatever?" And I'm like, and he'll just pepper the whole thing. And one day I was just like, I just pulled the squirrel out. I'm like, I guarantee you're never going to scale your business because you know about all these things and I don't. Like they're not in my business plan. If it ever becomes a thing I need to know about, I'm sure my clients are going to tell me because they're typically squirrel chasers. So I just thought it was interesting that so the lesson in it is that you don't have to like do the thing that we're marketed, like try this or try this or try this. There's just proven business strategies that work that don't require, a whole lot of guesswork. So anyway, I needed to talk about the squirrel.
No, and I think it's important because, now more than ever, Lars, there are so many distractions. What I mean by that is that there are so many people trying to sell us everything. Like I was literally on Facebook today and this guy goes, "I'm going to teach you how to raise money, blah, 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 this and that." And I'm like, oh, wow, that would be really cool to learn one day. Then I asked myself, I'm like, hey, this is not on my business plan. And he's like, he's virtually giving it away basically, but it's not what the goal for the quarter is. And I've had several cold calls. Hey, could you add this or could you add that? And I'm just like, hey, look, it's simply just not like, I'll put it down as a future item to look into it, but just not right now. This is not where the business is going. But I see so many agents, when that happens, they get so distracted and then basically they can't really focus. Let me ask you this, Lars. How much of actually growing a business is mindset versus like tools and systems and that sort of thing?
Yeah, there was a quote. I went to my first Tony Robbins event in probably like 2009 or 2010. Mm-hmm. And of course, I'm the ultimate consumer. So this was like he was Unleash the Power Within. It was in Long Beach. And of course, I go there and I buy everything, like the Mastery University for me and my wife. And so I dropped like 40 grand and signed up for everything. But in Business Mastery, he said something that has stuck with me forever. And I believe it to be true. So instead of me claiming it was mine, I'm just going to give the credit to Tony Robbins. He said 80% of mastering anything in business comes down to psychology or mindset. So the whole thing is mindset. There's no shortage of tactics or strategies that work. Everyone's looking for the next lead gen source or the next thing. It's your mindset around what you see the future version of your business to be. Like I think the best example is in my physical body. So I decided to run a marathon. I was never a runner, and I was gonna, we had these knee-jerk reactions, and we do these big challenges and big pushes. So I trained for a marathon. When I finished the marathon, I'm like, I will never do that again. And I stopped running. I think I stopped working out for 18 months
after that.
So it wasn't a mindset of becoming an athlete or I'm an athlete. So now I have a mindset of I'm an athlete. Like I make really good money. And so I need to take care of this body so I can show up for my business or members, and so the mindset around, there's no shortage of strategies for staying healthy, but do you actually have a mindset, for the reason why you want to stay healthy? What's the carrot or the stick for staying physically healthy? So that game is all mindset because there are a gazillion of diets and workout regimes and all of it. I don't know. It always helps me to give that example of like the psychology portion. And in business, it's just like, if you want to have more time to enjoy more money and to be less stressed, that's just a decision you make today for 3 years from now. And then you have 12 quarters to work on it, 3 years and 12 quarters. And then we chop away at it. So, it's definitely, it's definitely a mindset game.
Yeah. So here's one thing that I would recommend to the viewers as well too. And this is something that's helped me along. Whenever I'm looking to do something, I find somebody that's already doing it and or has already done it. And I basically get connected with them and I basically humble myself down and say, hey, look, I don't know what I'm doing. Can you help me out with this? Can you help me? And that's one of the things that I've enjoyed about your program, that like it literally breaks down everything. Like we're doing like a just listed mailer that we've never done any sort of mailing. I literally had to go in your platform, look at your just listed postcards and be like, okay, Lars is really smart. I'm sure that these have a really high conversion rate. I should probably just model my just listed cards instead of trying to reinvent the wheel. And sure enough, I go on the system, it says, why hire Lars or why hire Joseluiz? And I'm just like, this is brilliant, because whenever I mail them, they're going to see like, why hire Joseluiz? And we're giving 4 or 5 bullet points on why to hire me, which I'm imagining that will lead to more business as well too. So that's one of the things that I've enjoyed about having a platform like yours to be able to help me. And there was a time where on the transaction management side, we couldn't figure it out. We knew kind of what we wanted to set up. We went to one of your events. You guys show us Trello. And ever since Trello is a free tool and everybody's over here trying to sell me $1,000 programs to manage my transactions, it's free. And we're able to just plug and play and kind of do that. So I would say for agents, it's really important to do that. So let's go over a team structure. So like as an agent starts getting in production, what percentages of the age or the gross income should go to marketing? What percentages should go to administrative help? What percentage should go to other areas in the business? How should that be structured? And what are the profit margins of a really high producing real estate team? What should they look like depending on where they're at?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'll preface my answer saying this, in real estate, we tend to look at the folks that are selling a lot of homes, specifically teams. I have looked at the financials of so many top teams in all areas of the country to know that 8 times out of 10, it's a complete farce. Yeah. Meaning that they may have a $3 or $4 million business. They may have 750 to 800,000 of profit, but they're selling 700,000 of GCI themselves. So yeah. They built this business that's not even profitable. So the cool thing about the economic model that we prescribe is that it scales as you scale. Mm-hmm. So maybe not in stage one. Like in stage one, when you're under 100,000, you just need to hustle. Like you're not hustling, hustle more. Like just get over the hump. Like that's 10 transactions, 10, 12 transactions. Outside of that though, before you start to consider stepping out of production, it's 10%, 10%, and typically not 10% on overhead, but 10% on an administrator. So if you're doing 250,000, you need to start thinking, and you're doing 250,000, but you want to go to 500,000 and have a better quality of life and take home more money. Who doesn't want to do that, right? So you have to spend $25,000 on an administrator. That's typically 25 hours a week, right? So it's part-time. You should be spending 25,000, 10% on lead generation, probably your database, probably an expired or FSBO program, maybe some technology around that, RedX or something like that, or whatever you do. And then 10% on overhead, but typically, you may not be spending that. That could include, what you're paying your broker, or, if you're leasing a space or a desk space or stuff like that. That's the model. So on, let's say 250,000, there's probably 175 to 200,000 of pre-tax take home, pre-broker. So it depends on what deal you have with your broker, but that's if you're looking to scale it. So yeah, could you do 250,000 and not have an administrator and just work 25 hours extra a week? You totally could do that. Could you, not investing in client, appreciation or those sorts of things, yeah, you could, but you have to apply the discipline to do it. And that scales. So as you add people, let's say you add sales agents, the value-based commission split structure is key. Ultimately, only about a third, let's say you're fully out of production, only about a third of your GCI is going to go to pay all of your salespeople, including showing agents, inside sales, outside sales, and even your broker. We put the brokerage up above the line. And then a third goes to pay roughly those three buckets: administration, marketing, and overhead. And a third will drop to the bottom line. So a $3 million business, I haven't gotten the red book model to work. I don't think anyone can do 2.4 in net one. I've never seen it ever without, because that's 7th level. So the red book is Millionaire Real Estate Agent. I read it 12 times or listened to it when I was first got into real estate. So I don't get the 2.4 to net $1 million. It doesn't work. The math doesn't work. 3 million to net $1 million is what I've seen pretty consistently. We've taken members from 500,000 to 3 million where they're netting over $1 million using the right economic model. And then, you have to have accountability around the marketing dollars and the people you bring on. That's another missing link, is that these marginally profitable teams, we had a member at 5 million GCI. When you took out his production, single digit profit, selling 500 homes, and just didn't have the disciplines or didn't know the economic model. Mm-hmm. That's a big business. And there are some strengths that team leader has that are world-class and can build a business like that. The good thing is that we were able to shed about 10, 12% within 12 to 18 months and bring that business into almost a 20% profit business and take his production down. But it does come from a discipline in the economic model. And I don't care what your economic model is, you need to have one. Because 3 years from now, when you hit your top line goals, you better believe, you better have thought about it 3 years earlier, because you can't just end up, with a bunch of agents, no accountability around what they're doing with, lead sources. You run this loose business. Loose businesses are not going to be worth owning. We don't want you to scale and own something. I'd rather you have a small business and that's super profitable, really tight, than, twice the size.
Well, I think I made this mistake, Lars. Like a mistake that I made is when I started building my business, and this was the first time I had ever heard this concept when I went to one of your retreats. It was like, start with the end in mind. Mm-hmm. And it was really hard for me to do that. Like, I was like, what do you want it to look like? Because as soon as I started to think about what I wanted the end product to look like, I would start worrying about the how. Like, how am I going to get there? And I'd be like, okay, trying to figure it out. But the reality is, just being able to visualize what you want the finished product to look like will help you determine the roadmap on times. Lars, what about for the agents that are scared to delegate things because they think that nobody can do it like they do? Or basically they feel that maybe the customer's not going to be receptive to that. Maybe they feel like that the customer's not going to want to work with somebody else, that only that they're going to be able to give them the level of service that their client deserves. What do you say to that?
Yeah, I mean, there are definitely ways to go about, handing off pieces of the business, and it's a process. Let's take showing homes as an example. So in my market, you can get a really good showing agent. So this is someone that can handle themselves properly. They present themselves properly. They have a nice car, professional. They'll dress nice. They want to show homes. It matches their personality style. That's $25 an hour in my market. And so if you've committed to make 100 and you're going to show homes, you're losing $75 every time you show a home, right? So the mindset around that, it's a staged process. In that specific example, having a showing agent is a concierge service. It's a service to your clients, because if you're a busy agent, there will be times where you don't have the capacity to show homes, and in a tight market, you need somebody who's ready and able and there to show homes. And so there's a buyer consultation process where we are securing clients with a sales presentation, explaining the benefits of working with a showing agent. And, you know, and they're your business partner. So, I mean, I did this back in 2009 or 2000, the year I sold 66 homes, I did 33 buyers, but I didn't show a lot of homes that year. You know, they were still my client, and I paid out roughly about $500 of the 7,500 or so average commission check I was earning back then. My agents were straight up business partners. So they would say, my business partner, Chris, is available this weekend, you know, to show homes. And, you know, so I think it's mindset, you know, it's thinking that there was a sermon, that the title of this sermon, and I remember it hit me like a ton of bricks. You're not that important was the title. And I actually forget what the biblical context was, which shows I wasn't in the right mindset. But when I heard it, it was like you're not that important. So if you think of like the most complicated surgery where there's like only 5 surgeons in the world that can do this thing, and all of the lead up that goes into, you know, all the scrub techs and nurses, and even the surgeon that opens up the chest to have the surgeon go in and do his 20 minutes of work because he's the only person that can do it. Does that patient, you know, like if you're going to work with a buyer, but you're not going to show homes, just say, I'm going to be involved in all the critical points. There's 3 critical points that really matter. It's making sure you don't overpay on the home and we get the right terms. It's presenting the offer in a way where we're going to beat out the other 15 offers. And here's how we do that. And then it's doing this. And so it's again, it comes down to the mindset. It's all mindset. So there's no shortage of examples that this is working in different markets. You know, the showing agent model isn't new at this point, but it's definitely mindset. And then there are times, you know, where there was one year where we had $1 million in my market is a lot. So that's high end. And there were probably 5 referrals that I went on 5 appointments, even as leveraged out as I was, where I would say, you don't want me working on this, you know, but my listing partner, you know, sold my home personally. You know, I didn't even sell my own home because I'm out of the game. This is the player that, you know, does this at the highest level. And I was in it, you know, less than an hour into a $35,000, $40,000 commission check, you know, where the split was 10% to the agent because of the value-based commission split structure that we run, because it's my relationship. So that's good margin for the business, and it's good pay for the agent. They have less than 10 hours in it. They make $3,500. They make $350 an hour for coming on you know, where I own the relationship. So again, I think it's just mindset and knowing what you're worth, and also really feeling like what you're worth. Like, are you the surgeon? Are you the guy that doesn't even wash your hands? Think of like a surgeon, like has nurses wash his hands, and he walks in like ready to operate.
Well, I think just the exposure, once again, I'm going to touch on that, because when I started real estate, Lars, I was one of the first agents in my marketplace to have an assistant. And it took agents a little bit of time to get used to that. Like, they would call the office and they would be like, I need to speak with Joseluiz. I need to talk to him. And eventually, like now, it's like normal, you know, like they understand that they're licensed, that they are been with me for some time, that they probably know whatever they're talking about better than I do. Like if they need to find out something about a property, they can do it better than I do. Not only that, but I think it's exposure, because like one of the things that has helped me a lot is if I focused around the exposure in my market, I've never seen other agents in other markets do have assistants. Other agents in other markets do sell hundreds of homes. There are agents that have delegated the buyer process. There are agents that have delegated the listing process. So sometimes just realizing it's like the 4-minute mile. It took a long time for people to get to that 4-minute mile. And once one guy did it, everybody else saw it was possible. So I think for agents, just having that exposure to somebody that is already doing that, knowing that it's possible, and then following a roadmap to help you do that. So, and the last thing I wanted to ask on that is sometimes people don't delegate until they're forced to do so. Meaning, like, I had my sister who became pregnant, had a baby recently, and now we have a showing assistant for her. But before that, we didn't have one. And now she's like loving it because she's not out there showing the properties personally, but she's in the negotiations and all that. She's still able to produce and take care of their baby. So sometimes it takes certain life events in our lives to happen for us to change course or change direction. Sometimes it might be something bad, that could happen, like a divorce or something, to be like, I can't live my life like this. And the good thing is that there are people like you that can help us. I wanted to ask you one last thing. And this might be too long because we've got to be off by 2. I'll ask you afterwards. Is there anything else that you feel that we should add, or anything else that we might have missed? And then where could people find you as well too?
Yeah, I mean, I think you kind of, I think it's like Proverbs 27:18 or something, when you talked about, where there is no vision, the people perish. Mm-hmm. And I really think, like, if you just slow down for a minute and just take an inventory of the areas of life that matter the most. And if you don't have a vision for those areas, the chances are, I mean, you may end up drifting into a good place in your marriage, 3, 5, 10 years from now. You may drift into a good place with your health, 3, 5, your faith, or in business specifically. This business will eat you up, and it will not. The chances you're going to succeed in the areas of life that matter more than business are really low when you don't have a vision for how the business is going to fuel those other areas. In real estate, typically that takes over everything. Your spouse hates the business. They grin and bear it. Your children, don't get access to you, and you're never present. And your physical body, because you're out and about, you're eating crap all the time. You're not getting your workouts in. You're not reading your Bible, right? So there's all this collateral damage that, as it starts to compound, you're not going to realize it until it's too late. You have lost your marriage. You will have a heart attack. You will, it's not going to work out great. So it's hard to think ahead and think about, like, what areas of my life will I have regrets if I stay on the track that I'm on now? And that's my encouragement. Is this is not rocket science. This is just slowing down and taking a little bit of time, every quarter, or every year, every quarter, every week, to just have, we call them clarity breaks, where it's just 60 minutes where you're without technology and you're thinking about the areas of your life and business, what's working and what's not working. And there's no shame or guilt in it. It's just a little bit of actual data that's going to help fuel a different sort of outcome, or different activities, or different decisions or choices in the future. So that's the thing I will end with. It's just, doesn't matter where you are, your future could look different, but it's not going to look different if you're just you're in the rat race, you're on the transaction treadmill. That treadmill will kill you, and it will kill everything that's good in your life.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree with you 100%, Lars. So I want to say thank you for being on the show. Obviously, I'm a fan. I'm somebody that respects you quite dearly. I'm somebody that looks up to you, and I'm somebody that is going to be learning a lot from you in the next couple of years. So I really appreciate your mentorship, and I appreciate all the valuable knowledge that you've shared with people. I grew up, Lars, with my dad owning a business, and I thought that I wanted to live that same life. But what I realized as I got older is that my dad never had a business. And I think you had something very similar in your dad. He didn't have a business. He had a really high paying job, but the job didn't work without my dad there. And the problem was that he never set up systems. He never set up procedures. He never took it like that franchise model where basically you go to McDonald's, you don't see the owner of the McDonald's there. Basically the system runs completely without him. And I think that sometimes people think that they have a business, but the reality is that they don't. And the problem is that they don't work on the business. Therefore, you kind of are getting the same results. So if there's one guy out there, not one guy, but if there's a person out there that I know that can help you guys, if you guys are interested in building a real estate business, reach out to Lars, and I'm sure that his team can help you make some adjustments in your business. And they may not be large adjustments, just maybe a couple things that they can do for you to really help you grow your business. So where could they find you, Lars?
I would just go to realestatebschool.com. So there you'll have access to probably a half a dozen free tools. You can access the podcast, the Business Freedom Podcast from there. Just get to know us a little bit. And then there's the only call to action we have outside of getting the free stuff is a strategy session. It's just a coaching session where we can kind of dig into your business and have an honest conversation about where you're at and where you want to go.
Yeah. And take it from me, guys. I'm getting the best reviews from clients right now. Clients are like, if you read our reviews, they're raving about our services. And I have administrative help. I have people that help us deliver that high level quality service. And it comes down to systems and procedures and being intentional about it. So thank you, guys. This was episode number 49. If you like the episode, make sure you like it, subscribe. It helps out the algorithm. And then comment below as well, too, with any questions. And we'll get to
and share it. And make sure you share it.
Yeah, share it. All right. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.